Heyo, welcome to Ark Rex Temple of Ages, part 7.7. Ooh-wee. I'm very excited for this one. There's a lot of topics and movies in this one that I've been waiting the entire time I've made this channel to talk about. So I want to dive straight in, and a big theme of the last presentation was talking about you are what you eat and eating what you are. And I kind of came up with that part of the title spontaneously at the end. And it's kind of been stewing with me because I haven't really heard the phrase in that order, eating what you are. Yet, it's gotten me thinking, if you took away all the veneer of yourself and were really looking at the shadows, would you want to eat yourself? And I probably don't phrase it like that. Yet, if you look at maybe like a spiritual sense and not like putting food in your mouth kind of sense, like you consume media, you consume books, you aren't eating the book, yet you're consuming the information in it. And if we all looked at ourselves, are we what we would want to be? Kind of like people walk around and they're kind of serving out these dishes to everybody, what they're saying, how they're reacting, and people don't really like their own medicine a lot of the times when they're treated the same way they're treating people. So it makes me wonder if a lot of people would like themselves if they were exposed to it in that perspective, since we can kind of hide from our shadows a lot. Yet this is kind of why I wanted to make this presentation and talk about all these things, is that these shadows might come to life or light might be cast upon them. And I don't have the biblical quote right now, is that if you leave your skeletons in the closet, basically, one day they'll come out. Yet, if you show everyone, hey, I got some skeletons in here, it won't be that way because you've already dealt with them and you can move on. They're not festering in there anymore and slowly kind of building up pressure. You've gone and cleaned it up and it's much better now. That's the hope anyway. So the KFC row here, they had this series of commercials about this giant golden chicken egg, and the title, there's a few of them called Believe in Chicken and I believe in Gravy, similar to that. Yeah, it's this big idea of this cult-like mentality. The first one is that everyone's going about their lives, yet everyone starts forming this big dancing hive mind as they're walking down the street, and they're all kind of choreographed the same way, like a music video would be. Yeah, this is kind of saying that this is their day-to-day life, and that they're kind of following this vibration that's being put out in the air, and it's being put out by this chicken. And it's interesting that we were talking about chickens earlier with Minecraft and reality creation and what came first, the chicken or the egg, and that a term for the male generative force has to do with what a rooster's called. So it kind of relates back to this idea of reality creation. And we talked about earlier in the movie Sinners that when the vampires get a hold of you, they make you sing and dance, which is the exact same thing that kind of happens here, that this chicken's making everyone dance and follow its orders and perspective. And now it's a part of the chicken's hive mind. And the second video is there's all these people in the woods that are acting all weird, and they find this giant golden egg, and they dance, walk it to this giant gravy lake. And this lady carries in the dude and dips him in the gravy, and he becomes this chicken wing. And everyone's like, yay! And these are some very weird commercials, and here are some comments from it. And the top one saying, giant gold idol in the background while they do human cannibal sacrifice. They know exactly what they're doing. And the next one, my entire family has boycotted KFC since watching this ad. And I agree with that they're kind of blatantly showing that, like, even if it isn't completely true, that just the idea of it isn't something, the vibration of it isn't probably something you want to connect with. And I like the bottom one, KFC turning into a cannibal cult was not on my bingo card. But that even mainstream people are starting to see this pre-programming come out and going like, what does this have to do with me wanting to eat chicken? This is so weird. Yeah, it's about this vibration, and that if the truth is coming out, then there's no more veneer to put on this. There's no more American dream to keep you asleep and ignore all these things that are happening. So I kind of want to go back to the show Invincible, which was the last thing we were talking about in the previous presentation. And it starts out as this normal superhero show, and there's some subversions here and there. Yet the big part I focus on is that they start introducing the multiverse, that this guy right here has the power to go between dimensions. And he ends up turning evil and collecting all these evil versions of the main character to go to his world and fight them. And it turns out that the main character, that if you had 100 of the main characters, that most of them would turn evil. That based upon his story arc, that 9 times out of 10, so to say, that he turns evil. And I kind of wanted to make this kind of weird tangent right here before I go on, that this show was memed a lot. And I'll kind of talk later on about how memes might bridge itself with creating reality or warping it. And the show picked up a lot of steam, and here is a video in the background of Minecraft, which in the last presentation we were talking about bridging between dimensions, and we have the bee right there as well. And the question here was that, is the community making these memes okay? Because they were just going so off the rails. And there was also a comment here that the show remains something of an underdog exceeding expectations. So here we are back to the idea of the underdog, or Sirius, and a main character that can't die, that overcomes the odds and keeps coming back again and again and again. And now we're blending it with fourth wall breaking memes and relating it back to these video games that might contain truth of our reality and what's going to happen. So I watched this movie recently. It's about Batman and how his entire universe is changed, and it becomes Yakuza and Japanese themed. And it turns out that this is done purposefully, and the main villain creates a device that folds space and time, so Batman's normal world is connected with this world where, the Flash is now... All the superheroes are Yakuza henchmen, or villains. And the most powerful of all was Superman. So in this universe, he's evil. And it's very interesting that he turns good, because the original Batman that's thrown into this parallel universe, shows this evil Superman the good Superman. So he shows him like, hey, this is what a superhero actually is. You aren't being a superhero right now. You're just following your own ego and basic desires. And this is actually what, saving people above your own desires looks like. And ends up turning him to good and helping them save the day. And I kind of wanted to go back to this idea in the Doom universe, where all these demons come out because of advanced technology and infinite energy, that the main character that slays all these demons in this suit of power armor, the main villain is an alternate version of himself in a suit of power armor. So the final boss is you in this game. And there's more along it as well. And how they kind of split between dimensions, between this like circle doorway that keeps popping up again and again and again. And not only that, the fusion between the fantasy and the sci-fi universe all into one in this crazy tale, which is kind of like the new Matrix 4 movie. They took all the characters, they kind of redid the archetypes, and they just shoved Neo back in to redo the story, yet it was built upon the blocks of the old one, yet it starts getting really weird. And the main reason they did this was so they could farm the energy of this divine masculine, because they represent the sun, or this infinite energy. So like I was saying in the last presentation, the Doomslayer, instead of putting him to sleep again till the next cycle happens, they try to control his heart and all of his infinite energy and make him basically like a robot. And it doesn't work in the end, but it does work for a while. And how he comes back from death as well. And in this scene, you can kind of see it in the background that they trap him in these Cthulhu entities' dreams. And he's powering these abyssal tentacle monsters' dreams with the true, sun power or divine masculine power they're stealing from him because they're vampires. And I kind of want to talk here a second is that it's kind of like Satan being cast into the pit of burning fire. It's like, how did he get, if he's freed from the pit of fire, or the Cthulhu monsters break free from the abyss, the question you have to ask yourself is, how did they get into the abyss in the first place? And the answer to that is they were thrown there for the crimes of them coming out of the abyss and trying to take over the dream or the simulation. Yet, if you step back, it's that good and bad both get their time in the light. You have a golden age, you have a dark age. So it makes sense that you would have these monsters come out for the dark age, and then you throw them into the abyss for the golden age, and then they come out, and you just keep swapping them, which is this cyclical story that keeps happening. And they even tie that back to Doom, that he comes back from the dead and he's this zombie character, yet he just cannot die. So the only thing they can really do is just keep putting him back to sleep, yet he keeps waking back up. And, this cycle and story of the subconscious or all these demons coming to life keeps on happening. Yet it changes. And back to the giant robots. That's one of my favorite parts, so I just like including it. Yet it's just crazy that you have this story, and it might even be fantasy setting, yet it's like, hey, let's throw in giant robots because that's really cool. In my opinion, anyway. And it's one of the reasons I like making this presentation. It's like people can talk about like the pyramids and how they might be giant energy machines or ancient languages and secret societies and aliens. And I'm like, I get to talk about the giant robots. So I'm pretty happy about that. So I kind of wanted to tie that. So we have Invincible there on the left that we were just talking about, how it opens up the multiverse. And that on the right, we have Spider-Man, which opens up the multiverse and, is going through duality and everything is topsy-turvy. And it's just interesting that these are some of the biggest, most popular comics in the Western media right now that young people are consuming. So these are some of the biggest, most popular, positively reviewed shows that you could possibly even find right now, and they're all talking about the multiverse and how it's opened up, and how in the Spider-Man movie there's basically like this council of Spider-Mans throughout time and space that have come together to try to hold together the stability of the timeline. And you have this Spider-Man right here that wasn't supposed to be a Spider-Man, canonically. Yet he accidentally becomes one, and he's the one that starts unraveling the balance of this multiverse. Yet this multiverse is built upon death. That to keep it from disintegrating and chaos from coming in, basically his uncle has to die in every timeline. And he's saying, I don't want my uncle to die, because for you to keep your order, my uncle has to die. And you're okay with that, and you're not even trying to change it because you don't want to face the chaos, to take the gamble of saving someone else. So he goes on this adventure through space and time in the multiverse against his very self, because he doesn't fit the mold of it. And kind of back to this idea of you being your own villain. And I found this article right here about the alchemist's dream realized, turning lead into gold, is the Large Hadron Collider. So this infinite energy, this multiverse connection. And I don't have a picture of it, but in the original Spider-Verse movie, the Hadron Collider was what opened up the dimensions in the first place. Yet after that, it started happening in other ways as well. And then they haven't made the new movie, but the cliffhanger that they left was that canonically he was supposed to be a villain. That if he didn't accidentally become Spider-Man, which wasn't supposed to happen in the first place, he would have become a villain. Yet this small change of fate turned him into a good person, yet he's coming face to face with the evil version of himself as well, because all the multiverses are colliding. And there's even a meme about this, and you can look it up, about canon events. And it became a joke in our reality because the Spider-Man are saying, like, Uncle Ben has to die every time so we can keep the stability of our timeline, which kind of gave the idea that any one of our horrible events that you could name in our history had to be that way so that we could be right here, right now, for the timeline that the evil people want. And I would say for the good timeline as well, yet it's all about perspective. Yet you could use this, like the Hindenburg right here, that like if you go back to try to save the Hindenburg, this Spider-Man would pop up and be like, no, bro, you can't save the Hindenburg. Like, that's part of the story. You can't change the story or else it's going to go all topsy-turvy. Demons are going to start popping up, and like Mickey Mouse is going to pop out of like a portal, and it's like, you don't want that, bro. You like you want to have brunch on a Sunday, and you don't want Mickey Mouse popping out of the wall and then demons popping out, because you wanted to change the canon event. And so these are all different versions of Spider-Man. This was kind of the first movie that they talked about, and I wanted to specifically, in the background right there, that's like a Porky Pig Spider-Man, and he even has Looney Tune powers, so they're connecting Spider-Man here to Looney Tune powers as well, which I'll talk about more with One Piece later. And I talked about previously about these Looney Tunes, or imagination coming to life, and how even Walt Disney might have been some of the greatest pre-programming ever made, because the Imagineering he did with the Looney Tunes might have brought them to life, because they might have already been, real somewhere else, yet we gave them all of our attention, and what that might be used to bridge that gap. Like I was talking about with, I think it's not Foreverland, I think it's Futureland with George Clooney. But yet the idea is that like the City of Tomorrow, or Futureland, I think it's called, in Disneyland, actually exists somewhere, and that's where all the rich people are trying to hide, because it's like a utopia paradise, yet it's causing all the chaos in the day-to-day world around it, and you have to bridge the timelines and restore order to it because of the increasing chaos that we keep talking about. And just that one of the Spider-Mans is Nicolas Cage as well, the black and white Spider-Man. And I'll go into the Nicolas Cage thing later on, because I'm going to have a little part here about his archetype and the kind of movies he plays, and how it is even related to breaching the multiverse or the mind of God, and inserting yourself into that story, kind of like how Neo in The Matrix became the main character when he was just a normal day-to-day guy. And a huge point here with Spider-Man that I think of almost every day is that there's this meme or ongoing conversation on the internet, especially the last couple years, about how the writers of Spider-Man want to make his life horrible. And I got some comments here from YouTube that the best day for Spider-Man is when the writers stop putting him through the worst trauma possible. Spider-Man the movies, he sometimes is suffering, and Spider-Man in the comic books is a downward spiral that keeps downward spiraling, and it's just like horrible. And Spider-Man can never catch a break because suffering is a canon event. That, suffering is tied with Spider-Man, and people are noticing that, and it's kind of that idea, if you were Spider-Man, you wouldn't really want to have to suffer all this negativity just because the writers thought it was entertaining, which is, a double-edged sword. And this joke's gone really far that this is called the superhero editorial room, where superheroes talk with the writers. So this guy's like the writer of their comic books, and he's like, all right, this is what your comic book's going to be. Here's going to be your character arc. This is what your life's going to be like. And all the superheroes are like, what? Why are you doing this? Like, this is ridiculous. And he's like, but it sells comic books. This is what we want to do. And, even have the dog in the back that's serious. So I want to talk about Stargate and kind of relate it back to that, because that was, especially in Imagination Land, was South Park, and in this universe, that's how you bridge the dimensions, is this blue plasma gateway, and even in the background, you have the pyramid right there. And relating that back to the Stargate project that I keep talking about, that it was one of the first things the Orange Cheeto Man did when he came into office, was give $500 billion to bridge this gap between artificial intelligence and try to steamroll it as fast as possible into our reality. So I kind of want to bridge this to Atlantis, a children's movie that was made by Disney that I really liked when it came out. And it starts with this researcher called Milo Fetch. And he has this presentation he's giving to everyone in this lecture hall. And basically everyone leaves. Like, no one's paying attention to it. Everyone thinks it's ridiculous. And they're not taking it seriously. And afterwards, a rich individual comes up to him and he's like, hey, we actually think what you're researching is true. We've been researching it, and we're going to set out on an expedition, and we want you there because you're basically the only one that's actually been studying this stuff, because we all have actual lives and we go do stuff, and you're the only one that's been a bookworm in the corner learning all this stuff because you're a loser nobody that no one cares about, that just researches all this fantastical stuff because your life sucks, in my opinion. And how could I know about that? So it turns out Atlantis is powered by this blue plasma that can bring stones to life. So they have all these giant stone statues and stone fish cars that can fly, and these giant stone iron giant things come to life, and they're what protect them from cataclysms with this giant plasma shield when the water gets too high or low, so that Atlantis still might be real out there somewhere in some way because it protected itself, or put the barrier up. And this idea is connected with Atlantis and crystals a lot. These blue energy crystals that powered everything and gave them their near infinite energy, and all these crazy legends we still talk about today. And that didn't just start in this Disney movie. And relating that back to the Iron Giant, and he has glowing blue plasma eyes as well, bringing him to life. And back to Pacific Rim, he has the blue plasma nuclear reactor in the middle, and in his robot head are two little people piloting him. So it's just this fractal mind of God. And one of my points of this presentation is, the more I think about it, is I think the observer effect can happen anywhere. Like the mind of God or the perception of God can be anything, so that everything's connected. So I think computers or silicon have a different kind of consciousness because they have different sensors than we do. Kind of like if you see a slug on the ground, its perception of the world is different than yours, yet it's still connected to the same thing, and it's still being viewed with an observer effect that is all tied to the same thing. So it's all technically one, yet we see ourselves very different from silicon and machines. And I'm not saying like just jump into the machine pool and like merge with everything. That's a very where to even begin with that? That's kind of a mousetrap almost is a good way to put it. Like, I think there are good and bad sides to it, yet that's like the ultimate trick being played on us, is to identify with this realm and merge with the negative, disguising itself as good. That's kind of what I was trying to say. So, back to Ghostbusters, I was talking about this way back in the presentations, that in the second movie, in the first movie up there with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, it was the pyramid on top of the giant skyscraper in the Egyptian ritual with plasma that brought one of the characters' imagination to life, and it was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And in the second movie, it was the Statue of Liberty, because they found this purple goo or plasma goo that brought things to life and made it move, and it was also based upon emotion. So if you were angry to it, it would start bubbling and go all crazy because it was emotionally volatile. And just like I was talking about the Pacific Rim, this giant robot or giant stone statue is being piloted by people. So it's being piloted by the mind of God, and they're in the mind of God, and it's all fractal, and it's all, going back and forth. And I really want to talk about this new movie, Electric State, because it's going to go over what I was just talking about and show it in picture form, which is worth 1,000 words. So basically, that little orange robot on the left right there, that has the soul of a kid in it. And it's trying to find its original body. And they're on this adventure, and there was this big war between machines and humans, so the robots are exiled. And I want to make a point here that the robots are in the desert world, where the conscious robots that are brought to life with plasma are in the desert world. And the humans are in the water world, kind of like we are right now. And these aren't only robots, but they're thought egregores, like the Peanut Man right there. And they're being brought to life, like they're as real as the people around them. And I like the little eyeball above them all right there, and how they're really not that different when you look past their skin. Like if you can look past their outer layers underneath, they're all kind of the same thing, and if they work together, that's the thing you want to do in a moral way. And they even relate to Sonic the Hedgehog here. It's not completely the same, yet that's basically Sonic the Hedgehog, and how Sonic the Hedgehog is related to this dimensional merge and infinite energy and blue plasma. So this is what I was talking about right here. This kid is hooked up to this robot, but the thing is, so basically the humans are developing virtual reality, and they're all addicted to this virtual world they're building, kind of like they're building their own matrix. Yet to have this matrix, they need this kid in a pod. So for them to all have their nice virtual reality video game, they have to put this kid in a pod and make him stay in there and be stuck in the virtual world. So he can't be in the real world. He has to be stuck in this virtual world for it to go on. It's kind of like the fourth Matrix movie that they find out Neo and Trinity in the Matrix generate all this energy, and they can tap into it if they stick them in this pod because they're vampires. Hey, which I was just talking about. I kind of knew that was there, but not really, because like I said, I kind of do these off the cuff. And this is a person in his home with a VR headset piloting a robot because he's a cop in the future using a robot body, yet it's just this idea back and forth of, this is just the observer, and who the observer is really, in my opinion, it matters, yet if we're all connected to one, it kind of doesn't matter at the same time as well. You gotta love the paradoxes. I do, and I hate them at the same time. You gotta, yeah, the bittersweet. And here's the kid in his virtual world, because this is kind of like his happy place that he's hiding in. Yet they're trying to get him to come out into the real world, even if it costs everyone living in this virtual fantasy land. And he ends up doing it, but people think he'll die. But he actually doesn't, and he's reincarnated back into the robot, yet he still has the same consciousness that he did in the first place. Thus, blurring the line and kind of backing up what I was just saying. This idea of Sirius being born again, and kind of the water boy right there, and I kind of like how he's making that face, because I kind of feel that way deep down, like, what is all this? Like, come on now, this is ridiculous. This isn't serious at all. I gotta love the jokes built into it. But here I want to talk about the never-ending story, because it was kind of the same idea of resetting reality, because this is kind of like a fantasy way of looking at it, and the way we were just looking at it was the technology way. Yet it's kind of the same thing about creating these worlds and paradises and fantasy worlds, and the kids on the Kundalini dragon and the observer. So that brings me to Excalibur. Ooh, I love this movie. There's so much in this, and I've been wanting to talk about it for so long. So here we have the divine masculine. I've been talking about, the magical swords that can recreate reality, and of the divine masculine that can defeat evil. And that's the main idea of Excalibur, is this divine masculine and how it can rewrite reality. So the story starts with Luther Pendragon, the original guy that gets Excalibur, who is the father of the main character. And he even kind of has like this like wolf helmet right there. And he basically, when he gets his power, he abuses it in every way possible. And Excalibur stops working for him. And all of his friends are trying to get Excalibur and kill him. So, they're in the background trying to get at him. So he puts it in the stone, and they all kill him, and time goes on. And it's in the modern day, and they're having this big tournament for the right to pull Excalibur out of the rock, and they're jousting. And here's Jean-Luc Picard trying to pull it out, but he's not pure of heart, so he can't pull it out of the stone. And when everyone's asleep and the fun's over, the main character, who's a squire, he didn't even get to joust. He's just on the sidelines, getting armor together. He's just basically the errand boy. And he has this really weird synchronicity that leads him to the sword while everyone's asleep. So he gets his chance to pull it out. Yet when he does, no one believes him. So his brother, who's a knight, comes over and has the sword, and everyone thinks it's him. Yet when you're holding Excalibur, the sword of truth, the vibration goes to you. So he's like, no, I didn't pull it out of the stone. He did. Arthur did. And everyone's like, no, he didn't pull it out of the stone. So Arthur puts it back in the stone. And they let other people try again. And, some of the people are like, hey, that ain't fair. Like, he did it. And they're like, no, bro. Like, the squire didn't pull it out of the sword. Like, pull it out of the stone. Come on now. Yet, he did. And everyone's like, what? Like, they were not expecting that at all. And, hey, Merlin pops up. No one's seen him in like 20 years since Excalibur was last around. He just walks out of the bushes and he's like, hey, yo, let me tell you about your divine destiny. And everyone's like, Merlin! Like, you owe us money! I just like that part. So, like, Merlin's telling him, and you have the snake, about reality, and you have the snake right there. In the background, he's basically telling him everything's one. The way he says it, we're all in the dragon. That the trees are the dragon, that snake's a dragon, the pond's a dragon, you're the dragon. We're all symbiotic in the mind of God together. And if you start to understand that, you can start to exert your will over it in a good or a negative way. So he finds out that everyone's going crazy and there's like a giant civil war going on because everyone's losing their minds, that the squire has like the ultimate sword of power. And so they're all squabbling. So he goes to try to stop them. And this is one of my favorite parts in the movie because one of his biggest powers is that he spares people and he gives them Excalibur because earlier, like his brother did, they'll just give it back to him because it's the right thing to do. Because once you're holding it, like it passes the good vibration on to you. So he gives Excalibur to his enemy and is like, "Hey, you have to." Well, so this guy's like, "I'll never serve a squire because I'm a knight. I have all my fancy titles and rules." I'm never bowing to this random squire that popped out of nowhere that doesn't have any titles. So he's like, all right, knight me. And hands him Excalibur. And everyone's like, strike him down. Take Excalibur. Take the divine masculine for yourself. Yet it overpowers him. He knights him. And now he's one of Arthur's best knights. He just immediately flipped his enemy into his friend. I kind of like the guy in the background right there, just like, what? Even Merlin's like, I didn't see this. So he's rewriting the story in a way no one could have foreseen. And so it skips to later. And I just wanted to show this, that he's wearing this dog helmet. So again, they're tying it to Sirius, to the Kundalini dragon snake on his shield right there, because his name is Arthur Pendragon. And so Dragon's the name. So he comes across Lancelot, his best knight, and he has the Holy Grail on his shield, and he has a dragon helmet. So he's kind of like, also represents the divine masculine. He's on his quest to find the Grail, the divine care. So Arthur can't beat him straight up because Arthur isn't the best. Kind of like a lot of these chosen one tropes. So he has to use Excalibur to beat Lancelot, and when that happens, his sword breaks. And Merlin's like, bro, you can't break Excalibur. Like, what is this? He's walking off, brokenhearted, like, dude, we just got off on this chosen one journey and you already broke your sword, which isn't even supposed to be able to happen. Like, what? What are we gonna do? And Arthur ends up saying sorry and realizing it's wrong to use Excalibur to basically force others to your will and to change reality on that level. It's a very kind of, I don't know, delicate way to look at it, or very niche or nuanced. There we go. It's very nuanced how it works, yet that's why you need a good chosen one. So he gets his sword back, and I kind of wanted to talk about the pen is mightier than the sword, yet his name is Pendragon. So it's in his name, using the Kundalini spirit, that you can rewrite reality like a pen, and that's represented by the sword, or the male phallic instrument, because that can bring things to life. And when you look at it, creating life is the greatest, most divine thing you can do here, in my opinion anyway. So fast forward, Lancelot's his best knight. You got the divine care. And I wanted to go back and talk about how in Naruto, this is basically like the evil villain right here. And they're basically in like this weird afterlife montage moment. And the main character is like, don't be afraid to be anyone but yourself. You can stop running. We're all waiting for you on this side. And like behind him is like all of his friends and family. So it's kind of like that Sinners movie I was talking about, that like this is a vampire and the main character is like, hey, you can join us in the afterlife. You can come to this awesome heaven. Like you don't have to be stuck here. Like you are just trying to live forever and vampirize people. Like there's a way out of this. Like you don't have to keep doing what you're doing. And this is the main villain in that he cut out his own heart because he didn't want to feel anything because it was just so painful. So he's just, got this void in him. But, when he finally lets himself feel, that's when he can move on and rejoin the One in a good way. And I kind of wanted to talk about One Piece here. The guy that's basically turning into a Looney Tunes character. And they make a point here that one of his greatest abilities might be that he turns people around him into his allies. And that might be like one of the most dangerous abilities. Like in this universe, there's people that can like level entire cities and mountains with a punch. Yet this guy's like, hey, him changing people from enemies to allies is way more powerful than leveling a mountain. In his opinion, anyway. So back to Excalibur. They're having a good old time. They're at the wedding. They're all shiny and dressed up. It's the good times. Yet the inverted feminine pops up with Merlin. So she's like this evil witch that's trying to steal all of his power. But Merlin's all lusty and, not seeing the red flags. And she traps him in his own crystal cave and steals his magic. And she uses this magic. So basically, Arthur's father, Luther Pendragon, used Excalibur to shapeshift into his enemy and create a bastard with his enemy's wife. And that was Arthur. So this inverted feminine pretends to be Arthur's wife and then conceives Mordred, the inverted son. And so it's interesting that it like flipped and is very cyclical of how he was born as well. And basically when Mordred pops up, all the chaos is entering this realm and Arthur loses all of his power and sends all of his knights to go find the Grail because the land's in turmoil and Arthur can't do it anymore. And they need to find the Divine Care to bring him back because he's not doing very well. And one of his knights, Percival, finally does it. Like he's the last one. All of his other knights are lost or dead. And Percival finally, he has to lose his armor too. So like he has to keep following it even past when no one would. And he has to even give up his identity to do it. And he finally sees the chalice. And the chalice, the secret of it, and it kind of zooms into the king right there, or the ascended masculine, or God, basically, the good version of it. And the secret care right here that brings Arthur back is that he and the land are one. So him and the mind of God are one. And he had lost his care, he had forgotten. Yet when Percival brings him this chalice and reminds him that you're connected to everything and you can make it better, he's like, oh, all right, let's do it. How empty my heart has been. Kind of like that villain earlier that didn't have a heart. He had let himself drain, yet now he was filled. And he goes, so when they start riding out of the castle, everything's dead. Yet as they're going past, they're bringing it to life around them as they're going. And like these rose petals are falling on them. And he's reunited with the divine feminine that wasn't around anymore and caused a schism. And this is Lancelot, that was this clean-cut knight earlier. And, he's all scruffy right here. So once again, we have this scruffification of the divine masculine character, yet they come back for this final battle of good and evil to save the day and redeem themselves. And basically everyone dies. Mordred is slain. Arthur's mortally wounded, and we have the eclipse symbolism all over these scenes. And he gets Percival to throw the sword back in the lake, and so the divine masculine goes back to sleep. And this is Arthur's corpse being carried on the ocean into the afterlife. And it kind of made me think of The Truman Show, because that's the ending of The Truman Show, is sailing the boat away into the horizon and into this next story. And that even made me think of Back to the Future, since that's what happens, is that when you go back to the future and repeat this story, you go to a new story. So you're leaving one and going to the other because it never truly ends, and especially if you're the serious main character, that you don't die. So the story just keeps booting back up and over again, and it's being written with this Kundalini dragon force into good or evil. At least in this version of the story. And I kind of wanted to talk about Highlander for a second, because we once again have the divine masculine and the sword, and it's represented by blue plasma and the lightning around him, and that it allows you to live forever. Yet there's this quickening and this there cannot be only one, that, you know, this duel at the end of time to see who the real champion is and who can wield this divine plasma power to live forever and reshape reality. So this was the tangent of Nicolas Cage movies I wanted to talk about, because when you put them all together, it paints a very interesting picture, especially with the final one, Dream Scenario, I'm going to talk about. Yet when you add up all these pieces, you get this complete picture I keep talking about. So the first one's like the Five Nights at Freddy's. He made his own spin-off called Willy's Wonderland. And, you know, Willy, the divine masculine, and these animatronics that have like the souls of dead children stuck inside of them, you know, this, you could see that as like this reality we're in, and he's like the ascended Jesus character in it, and he's the only one that can destroy all these animatronics and save all these other people that are stuck with him in this horror house. And to him, you know, it's just like another day on the job. Like, it doesn't really faze him that much. He also says almost nothing in this movie. It's very interesting. And like I said, back to the Five Nights at Freddy's, which is also very popular in the zeitgeist of our minds. And once again, back to the idea that the conscious observer of these robots might actually be much more human-like than you imagined in the first place. And then we have The Wicker Man, where Nicolas Cage finds this cult on this island that are sacrificing people every year so they can have a better harvest. So they're vampirizing off people in this ancient cult-like way. And it's even related to bees, you know, beekeeping and all of that, so they can maintain their status quo on this island and have this nice traditional farm life, yet they have to do it by killing people, which is no bueno. And that takes us to Mandy, which is a movie where he has a girlfriend that's abducted by a satanic cult, and that summon like demon-possessed people to fight him, and he basically has to fight his way to her and try to free her. And with this red plasma as well. And there's a lot of psychedelic imagery in this movie as well. Very gory. So this takes me to The Color of Space, which is where a meteorite falls down in his well from outer space, and it starts mutating everything around it and trapping it into a hive mind. It's a lot like The Thing as well, yet it's related, like I said, to this red-purple plasma energy that takes you over and possesses you and starts mutating. It's a lot like Annihilation as well, that last movie. Like, the food starts becoming poisonous, the water's poisonous, and that's turning them all into these crazy hybrids that are losing their mind because they're possessed by all this plasma that's changing their environment that was brought on by this thing that wasn't from their closed system that now entered their closed system. And the symbology of the mind of God in this picture poster right here as well just kind of keeps adding on it as well. And here's that picture, like, she's possessed by this meteorite, so it's kind of creating this hive mind by possessing people with his energy around it and what they're consuming. And, you know, it goes downhill pretty fast because this isn't a happy entity. So this brings me to Dream Scenario. I think about this movie so much. So this came out, I want to say a few years ago, and it's about this nobody that breaks into the mass subconscious of everybody. And so it starts out with this first dream, and it's just this normal day where he's cleaning the pool, and this, I don't think it's a rock, but something shatters the glass. And you can think about that as our system as well, that if we're in a dome or whatever have you, that it's represented like glass. And when there's this glass breaking, especially in movies, that's usually when the monster comes in or something changes in the environment or things really start going, because this closed system is now open. And here we have the frog. So I'm going to relate it back to memes, but that this reptilian kundalini force breaks through the glass. So, like I've been saying, this consciousness represented by this reptilian force, that's also like in Dragon Ball Z and things like that, and meme magic breaks through the barriers of reality. That's the key to breaking open the barriers of reality itself, is these memes, these chaos. And she starts floating up in the air. And there's a theory in this that when you float up in the air, it's showing you whose dream you're really in. And if you're in a closed system, I talked about this in the very first episode I made in this series, that we might be in a system like a pressure cooker. So if you opened it, it would pull people up, so it'd be like the rapture. So I think there's a lot of pre-programming in that this has happened before, and it's in our subconscious that we can fly up into the sky because it's being depressurized and kind of pulled out. So it turns out this was a dream, and he wakes up, and he's just this normal... Well, he's not normal. He's basically the doormat of everybody. Like, his wife doesn't respect him. His kids don't respect him. He's just this college professor that everyone thinks is a goofball and no one takes seriously. Here, we're back to the serious. And he wants nothing more than basically to be loved or to have attention. That he's tired of being a doormat. He's tired of everyone walking on him and not taking him, or not respecting him or taking him seriously. So he has this huge desire within himself that's just boiling over day by day, which if you take like Neo from the Matrix, that was the thing that woke him up into the Chosen One, was his desire to know the truth and to escape this crappy life he was in that he wasn't satisfied with, and that there was more. And that was also the plot of the Minecraft movie, and how the main character, when he quit his job and started following his heart, that's when these dimensional rifts opened up. So, there are a lot of small details in this movie, kind of like those frog car keys. This presentation right here, and another one later on where he only briefly mentions memes, yet when you add it within everything in this movie and what I've been talking about, it just speaks so much, and it's kind of hidden in symbolism. So this first college lecture, he's talking about zebras, and how zebras don't have a natural camouflage system, and that their camouflage only works with other zebras, so that when you leave the pack, you stand out. And that's what I was just saying, when the desire in your heart is so powerful that you're willing to leave behind the herd, your job, your life, the validations, the fancy titles, to follow the truth, that's when this starts happening. And it's... like I was saying, that zebras don't blend into their natural environment, so that when you do this, you become very apparent and everyone can kind of see you. Also back to like the Shining example, and with vampires, when you shine your light, people can really see you now, because it's like you're in a dark forest and you just lit a lantern. Or you're a zebra that just stepped out onto the Serengeti out of your herd, like you just pop right out. So people are starting to say to him, and come up to him like, hey, like, I saw you in my dreams. And he's like, what? And at first he's only an observer. So he's just popping up in people's dreams, and like he'll wave at them, but he's not really doing anything. He's just like standing there. And he goes to this dinner. Well, he's not at the dinner. He basically all the popular people are at this popular dinner that Nicolas Cage really wants to go to. And they're having a discussion about this person they're seeing in their dreams, and they relate it to him. And she's making this face like, what? Because like they can't believe that it's like the person she saw in her dream was this real person. Like it's free, it's this fourth wall breaking thing. And it gets so big, he's even on the news. And, it goes to his head and all that, but yet like he's breaking through reality. And here he has a classroom where they're all talking about seeing him in his dreams and they're clapping for him. Like he's now the main character on the stage. And he was going to make a presentation about memetics. What is a meme? And it's interesting down here at the bottom, may spread parasitically by a variation of process, particularly imitation. So, because a meme is information or instructions for behavior, or like right here, a living structure. So a meme also, if you look back at some definitions of it, is like the most basic form of an idea. So it's almost like a hieroglyph. What's the simplest way you can put something and show something to somebody? And that's like a big part of my presentation as well, is that I try to use images to try to cut down into the matter as quick as possible without all, a bunch of math equations and things like that, and just letting the information and story of itself stand on itself, and the increasing patterns of it add value. So this is where to begin with this. So this is pre-programming from 4chan. And 4chan's a big website. It's not as much anymore, but when I was growing up, it was a huge alternative website where you would go that was kind of off to the side, where you could talk about things that a lot of other places wouldn't let you. And on the paranormal side of it, there's this thing there called the Nobody. And they've been putting threads about this every day for years and years and years. And I'll just read a little thing. The Nobody is a figure alive today who has extraordinary spiritual powers, including the ability to control reality with their conscious and unconscious mind. He is a man of no wealth or worldly claim, through whom it seems God has chosen to manifest his strength and wisdom. He is said to carry the Logos, making him a fearless truth teller and menace to the powers that be. Instead of receiving strength through superiority mechanisms, the Nobody proves them time and time again that a whole planet filled with creative, ingenious, spiritually ascended humans who are individually sovereign yet globally unified through consciousness can achieve greater things than a planetary empire of darkness and control. He's not a messiah, he's just like you, but he has found the kingdom of God within himself through sheer dedication, just like you will. And back here, remember, you create your reality with your hands, thoughts, feelings, and words. You are the creator of your story. No one can decide your fate except for you and God. Remember your right to power to step up into your ultimate role as your highest self, should you choose to embark upon that journey. So I just wanted to say here that this is Chosen One pre-programming, that people are trying to get people to spiritually awaken, and this website has been trying to do it for a long time. And I just kind of want to say, this is the same website right here where they're talking about not wasting the divine masculine with semen retention, but also right here, a thread about topias, which are basically about creating your own imaginary friends that seem autonomous from yourself in your own mind. So the very website that's trying to pre-program you with becoming the chosen one is combining it with memes and imaginary friends come to life. And there's also ones on here about signing contracts with sex demons and them performing energy rituals and works on you so that you can be together in the afterlife. I am not kidding you. And those are there every day. Like, this is where they're funneling people, especially neurodivergent people on the edge of society that have nothing better to do than look at memes, and to become a chosen one and bring your imagination to life and sign contracts with sex demons. Yeah. But back to this idea of like rewriting reality, here you have the picture of Jesus walking on water, trying to tell people that, you can transcend this story and these rules as well if you understand them. And back to meme magic right here, that this was a big thing with the Orange Cheeto Man in the recent presidential election, and that one of the reasons that they think he won the race was because of meme magic and how it brings things to life, yet this is connected to ancient Egyptian gods and worship, and even secret societies like the Illuminati card game that I went over in an earlier episode. And blessed be the memes. May the internet be open. This is from The Handmaid's Tale, yet I kind of found it, and kind of combines with memes and the internet and being open, opening up this dimension that we thought wasn't real or couldn't connect to us in that way. So back to Nicolas Cage's movie, they make an explicit point of mushrooms here. Not only mushrooms, but blue mushrooms. Blue plasma mushrooms, like the blue plasma mushrooms I talked about last episode from Common Side Effects that could cure any disease. So he's in a dream. This guy's eating the blue mushroom. He's all dressed up for the stage, this big event that's going to happen that everyone's been waiting for. The apocalypse, Armageddon, the unveiling. And when he eats this, there's this crazy zombie man that pops up, and everyone else is kind of looking away. They don't want to look at this. Yet when he eats this mushroom, he becomes aware of the truth and what might be coming. So he's trying to hide. And you got all the mushrooms around him. And here's Nicolas Cage, just walking into this guy's dream, observing, especially paying attention to the mushrooms. And they're connecting mushrooms through space and time, this divine masculine force, and breaching the gaps. Because so far, this has been the natural way that your brain could do it on a Saturday night. Yet, what if there was all this energy that could do it naturally, and it wasn't just in your head anymore? So the zombie guy is like getting eating this guy's brains and making him form the hive mind, and Nicolas Cage is just watching. And I want to talk about Chim again, which is from the Elder Scrolls series, which are these giant video game series that have pre-programmed my entire generation. And basically the whole point was that the main character in the video game realizes that they're in a video game, but that their video game is a dream, and that they can take control of that dream, and they can start changing reality and changing the script around them. That, or they basically go insane or disappear from reality entirely. And that is connected with mushrooms as well, and that's connected to the Dune movie with Paul Atreides, that when he drinks the blue water of life from the worms, the desert sandworms, that he can see through time and space and pick the best path for humanity. So it just over and over and over from all these different points in our reality, especially my generation that have been pre-programmed with the idea and becoming lucid in a dream. So this girl's having a dream, and a lot of these dreams are very apocalyptic. Like, everything's being thrown around, the lights are flickering, there's an earthquake going on, everyone's running around all crazy and losing their minds, pure chaos. And this lady has mushrooms growing out of her. And I was talking about it last episode with the movie Annihilation, where they go into this realm where everything starts fusing, people are turning to plants, that one guy got overtaken by mushrooms. And I think that can happen to people, that's where this hybridism comes from. So like Minotaurs and Centaurs, the Lobster Man I was talking about last episode, that if you're not in control of your mind, that the DNA within you can come to life and take over. So unless you're this ascended individual that has his mind over matter, the matter might take over your mind, in my opinion. But this is shown in this movie as well. And here's Nicolas Cage just walking around, with the lights flickering, and they really represent him with that. There are people flying up into the sky. He's just standing there, whatever, just observing. And here's another one, she's stuck in time because she has the hourglass behind her, in this reptilian time bubble, and stuck on the music, and how I was talking about earlier, Sinners, and how vampires make you dance and play music for them because they can't themselves because they're not real. So these crocodiles are trapping this girl in time on a piano for their own entertainment. And, Nicolas Cage is walking in and being like, hey, what's going on? So at this point, you have him, the mind of God, and the thoughts of the mind of God, and that being personified into the outside world as well. So he goes to this marketing firm, and they're trying to figure out how they can brand him and make money off it and make him a global sensation and phenomenon. And what happens is, so he's married, but he ends up sleeping with this girl on the marketing team. And she's also related to mushrooms as well. She has this Amanita muscaria mushroom poster right here that I was talking about, the Amanita muscaria mushroom in the last episode, and how it's related to Santa Claus and bridging this gap between dimensions. So basically, this doesn't go well. She has a fantasy of him that he can't fulfill because he's just this, he's just been a nerdy college professor for 20 years in a loveless marriage. Like, he's not ready to go rock some college girl's world in her apartment just off the bat, and meet her fantasy. So this goes horribly wrong. His base nature comes into the reality manifestation and things start going wrong. And so all these things start popping up in his dreams. So he's not observing people anymore. Like, he's hurting people. This is a girl he's choking out in a dream. And so he finally gets to go to that dinner he's always wanted to go to because now he's famous and popular. Yet the wife of this guy right here freaks out because Nicolas Cage choked her in her dream right here. Yet in real life, he didn't choke her. Yet to her, her dream is real to her. So she's freaking out. She can't look at him. It's just ruined this whole dinner. So but this is happening to everybody. So they get this focus group together. They try to introduce him, and they see how close he can walk. Yet they're not having it. They're all freaked out. Like, his subconscious and his repressed feelings are now being shown to all of them, and they do not like it. And they're calling him the loser. But back to this idea of the main character being a loser. And look on the bright side. You're a loser. But it flip-flops, so it's not like you're just stuck as a loser. Yet it's a very biblical thing that Jesus wanted to be around the homeless and the prostitutes because, that's where the real soul saving was. And where you could save people from the darkness. And, just going... I didn't say it earlier, so that 4chan conspiracy about the nobody, about being this spiritual being that can rewrite reality, is called the nobody. And you go from being a nobody that no one cares about and paying attention to being a somebody. Jesus, in my opinion, is our somebody so far, until a new person steps up and rewrites reality. Because that's what Jesus did. He stepped up, performed the great work, rewrote the Old Testament into the New Testament, rewrote reality, and then peaced out. And then, the Spirit will come back again, take the rules here, and then rewrite it again. And that all starts with the nobody loser, in my opinion anyway. So life's not going good for Nicolas Cage right now. Everyone hates him. And he's having this dream of himself, hunting himself and shooting himself full of arrows. So like his own subconscious is starting to eat itself based upon his feelings of himself because he can't control his own subconscious. And it's just going downhill. And he really wants to go to this play of his child in, being a rabbit and going down the rabbit hole. And that's kind of like the breaking point that, like, he's trying to force his way into this play, this theater, yet everyone's dragging him out because that was kind of the condition. Like, you can't come to this thing anymore because everyone hates you. And it would make... Because if you go to this theater to see your child, everyone's going to feel bad and nervous to be around you so that you can feel good. So you're making an entire room of people feel bad so that you can feel good. So he's not giving up the ultimate sacrifice. He's just being selfish and selfish and selfish. So later on, they make a ring, and you could take this back to the ring reality, like in the Loki show, that gets rid of all the other variations so that there's no chaos anymore. Kind of like our world. You only have gasoline cars, and we don't have monsters running around everywhere because we created a closed time loop that's very specific. We don't have the multiverse crashing in at every point, like the Tree of Life model of the multiverse. like I talked about in the last episode. And here we have Carl Jung in the subconscious and the shadows. So here it says, share products in dreams. Ad-supported model is free. So they figure out how to make artificial dreams, and the first thing they do is decide to create marketing for it, so that marketers will come into your dreams and try to sell you things if you use this Noro, which you wear around your wrist. But this allows you to connect with people, and there's a no nightmare guaranteed. Enthusiastic consent required. Like, you've got to put your own juice into it. Bad vibes terminated. Only fun dreams. And you can see this person stuck in the loop right there. And it's not all great, but it's better than pure chaos for some people. That's a personal choice. So Nicolas Cage at the end is kind of lost and alone, and he is putting on the ring. Like, he's giving up his own sovereign powers so that he can kind of get a better version of it, or less scary. And they relate him to Freddy Krueger in this movie. And that was kind of how they marketed him at one point, and how he can enter people's dreams, which is in that. And so eventually at the end, this is his wife, and she's at this pillar surrounded by all this fire, and he comes walking in this oversized suit. And he saves her, and they're together. And he ends up floating up, which implies that he was going into her dream instead of, well, yeah, I think so. But I don't know specifically about that. But then once again about, their dreams became real, but then eventually their dreams have to be separated again back into the real world. So it's just this cyclical cycle of the subconscious becoming one, but then not, then becoming one, then not, and becoming a somebody from a nobody. And I wanted to so this is the epic rap battles of history, which mismatch all these characters from all these different fictional universes, and I grew up on this and like it a lot. Yet this one has Freddy Krueger, and we were just talking about people that can invade people's dreams, and it's connected to Wolverine. And in recent presentations, I was talking about Deadpool and Wolverine, and how this is the super unserious kind of sequel to the multiverse that Marvel's been building. Like, you had the first multiverse and time travel that had all the original superheroes like Iron Man and Spider-Man and Robert Downey Jr., and it was all by the books and serious and, big budget. And by this point, you have this fourth wall breaking meme lord superhero that doesn't take anything seriously, and you're combining that with Wolverine. And both these superheroes right here, their superpower is they don't die. Wolverine and Deadpool just keep regenerating no matter how much you put them through, and that's their main thing. Yet Deadpool's thing is that he knows he's in a comic book and will talk to the audience, and it's just all over the place and doesn't take anything seriously. And in this movie, the inverted divine feminine is trying to destroy the timelines into chaos to create her own timeline, and Deadpool and Wolverine are doing these Jesus T poses with red and blue plasma to save reality itself. And once again, we're back to the Jesus T pose with all the red energy saving reality. But now we've gone from this super serious story to this super joke one. And my favorite's the joke one. I think that's pretty self-explanatory at this point. And becoming a somebody, because both Deadpool and Wolverine in this movie were basically nobodies and at the bottom of their luck. Like, this was the Wolverine that was from like the worst timeline because he messed up everything and didn't save his friends, and this was like his ultimate redemption to being a good person again and to somebody. And this divine, getting back this divine masculine and healing power, and the sun back, being able to come back out into the sun and not being a vampire running from your destiny anymore. And so I want to end it here with the Truman, in case I don't see you later. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And just how much that fits with the theme of this video and what I keep talking about. And this path we're on and this story we're trying to tell, and all the crazy things that are going on in the narrative plot devices, and just where we want to go with this. And you can go back and watch my video called Arc Rex. I don't remember the exact one, but it's about 4 videos back, and that goes over where I actually want to go with this. And I'll make some more videos about the smaller steps up until that, because that's going to be more of a focus. So this was the 1000th slide that I've been making since the 7.1 presentation. So, and I have 17 more after this. So, and I probably want to make about 200 or 300 more, maybe a little more than that, for 1 or 2 more videos to finish it up and talk about most of the last media pre-programming I want to do. And after that's done, it's mainly going to be, I'll still probably talk about this stuff as it pops up in my life and kind of refine it and solidify it all into singular topics. Like, I'll take all the whale dream stuff and all the Paul Atreides Dune, seeing through time and space stuff, and all the giant robot stuff, and put that in its own video, so I can send people like, here's all the giant robot stuff, here's all this, because right now it's all kind of put together, and it's very hard to market things to people when it's all jumbled together and it's not the individual things. And I can kind of build it up like Lego pieces from there. Yet the idea is to actually go to food production and things like that, and helping out our day-to-day lives and standard of living, instead of just talking about these things on YouTube. Yep, I felt like this was the first choice, and I'm going with the vibes and the synchronicities and just learning along the way, because that seems like something you do once you start really awakening the Kundalini vibe and getting that mojo flowing. And, I'm working on that a lot, yet I'm still kind of in that phase where I'm still kind of hiding in the steam, kind of like Danny in The Shining, that he didn't really clean up his act till the very end, and that's when he got all the power to change his destiny in the world around him. And that this is a very slow, delayed story as well. So who knows how long it'll take. And I'm just trying to go along with it as well, because it makes it even more interesting. And also, like the pressure cooker analogy, that the longer we let it build pressure, the more chaotic and grandiose and amazing the story is going to be. Because this seems like not just like any one story. This seems like everything put together. And I'll go more into this, especially with like Ready Player One. They have this giant battle at the end between like every fictional character about against evil. Same with like Power Rangers. All the different Power Rangers from like 30 years come throughout space and time together for this one last battle. Same with the Marvel movies. All the superheroes from all their separate universes came together in this one last final battle against evil, but then it starts rebooting and resetting into these other storylines, because it never really ends. It's the never-ending story. So if you're here with me till now and you've been along with this channel, I want to say thank you so much for being here and listening to this. And I hope this is inspiring you like it's inspiring me. And hopefully I can take my own advice better in the future, day by day. So I wish you an awesome day or night wherever you are. I love the infinity right here. To those to infinity and beyond itself. Peace.